I never saw Elvis perform Sweet Caroline, although I did see him perform in
Neil Diamond is one of the most celebrated voices in music history. For over 6 decades, his songs, from Sweet Caroline to Cracklin' Rosie, have been the soundtrack of countless lives. He is admired for his warmth, humility, and extraordinary talent. Fans see him as a gentle icon who brought joy to millions, but even legends have their hidden stories. At 84, Neil Diamond has finally opened up about 6 musicians he truly hated. These weren't minor disagreements or passing rivalries. These were deep personal grievances that left a lasting impact on his career and his life. For years, Neil avoided naming names. He didn't want to spark controversy, gossip, or industry drama. But now, reflecting on decades of music, fame, and friendships, he is speaking the truth. Some of the musicians he hated were rivals whose ambition crossed the line into cruelty. Others were collaborators or friends who betrayed him, stole his ideas, or spread rumors behind his back. Some were driven by sheer ego, treating others with disdain, belittling those around them, and trying to dominate every stage they shared. We uncover the shocking reasons why Neil Diamond hated these 6 artists. We explore rivalries that went too far, betrayals that left permanent scars, and egos that poisoned the music they were supposed to create together. By the end, you'll see a side of Neil Diamond most fans have never known, a man who faced hatred, deception, and ambition in the cutthroat music world, yet continued to rise above it all and leave a legacy that is untouchable. Neil Diamond has always respected healthy competition. In the music industry, rivalry is a natural part of the landscape. Artists compete for chart positions, award recognition, and audience attention. But for Diamond, some rivalries went far beyond professional ambition. 2 of the 6 musicians he admits he hated were competitors whose actions crossed the line from ambition into outright cruelty. Neil recalls one of these rivals publicly mocking his music in interviews, belittling his work by calling it lightweight or old-fashioned. It wasn't just criticism, it was personal. The musician seemed determined to diminish Neil's accomplishments, attempting to make fans, critics, and industry insiders doubt his talent. Even at the peak of his career, Neil remembers feeling the sting of these public attacks. It was a reminder that in the entertainment world, admiration can turn to resentment quickly, and even icons aren't safe from slander. The second rival took a more strategic approach. Instead of words, this musician used influence behind the scenes, pressuring promoters and radio stations to minimize Neil's exposure. Songs that had previously topped charts suddenly faced unexpected obstacles, and opportunities that should have been routine were blocked without explanation. For Neil, this behavior wasn't just frustrating, it was demoralizing. Competition can push you to grow, he explained. But when someone is actively trying to erase you, that crosses a line. These rivalries taught Diamond an important lesson about the fine line between healthy competition and destructive envy. While rivalry can inspire creativity and fuel performance, cruelty masks ambition, turning potential growth into bitterness. Neil describes nights spent reflecting on these experiences, wondering why such talented individuals would waste energy tearing others down rather than focusing on their own art. Despite the frustration, Neil didn't let these rivalries define him. He continued performing, recording, and connecting with his audience, letting his music speak louder than the attacks he faced. And yet the experiences left a lasting impression. Even decades later, he admits that thinking about these 2 musicians brings back memories of tension, disappointment, and the harsh realities of fame. By sharing these stories now, Diamond provides fans with a rare glimpse into the challenges of being a celebrated artist in a competitive, sometimes ruthless industry. Rivalries are expected, but when they turn bitter, they can leave wounds that last far longer than the chart battles or award shows. For Neil, these 2 rivals weren't just obstacles. They were a reminder of the darker side of success, where jealousy, cruelty, and personal attacks can overshadow talent and hard work. Neil's story highlights the resilience required to navigate fame. Despite facing public ridicule and behind-the-scenes sabotage, he continued to build a career that would endure for decades. Rivalries may have left bitterness, but they never broke his spirit. Instead, they became part of the journey that shaped the artist fans continue to love today. While rivalries can be expected in the music world, Neil Diamond's second set of grievances was far more personal. 2 of the 6 musicians he admits he hated weren't just competitors. They were people he once trusted, collaborators and friends who betrayed him in ways that left lasting scars. These experiences were some of the most painful moments in his career, and for decades, he kept them private. One of these musicians was a close collaborator, someone Neil had worked with on song ideas and creative projects. Diamond trusted them, shared his inspirations openly, and believed in a mutual partnership that would lead to something great. But behind his back, that trust was broken. The collaborator took one of their shared song ideas, claimed it as their own, and reaped the financial and professional benefits. For Neil, it wasn't just about the lost opportunity or money. It was the violation of trust, the knowledge that someone he considered an ally would exploit their relationship for personal gain. "You hope your collaborators respect you," Neil said. "But when they steal from you, it cuts deeper than anything a rival could ever do." The other betrayal came from a musician Neil had once considered a friend. Over time, this individual began spreading damaging rumors, suggesting that Neil was difficult to work with, arrogant, or egotistical. These whispers weren't just idle talk. They reached promoters, radio stations, and industry insiders, quietly affecting opportunities and creating a barrier for Diamond in professional circles. What made it worse was the duplicity. The friend presented themselves publicly as supportive while undermining Neil in private. This kind of betrayal left him cautious in future relationships and wary of whom to trust in an industry where loyalty can be fleeting. For Neil, these betrayals were especially difficult because they involved people he had respected and admired. They weren't rivals fighting for fame or chart positions. They were individuals he had welcomed into his creative circle. Their actions weren't just unethical. They were personal attacks on the foundation of trust that Neil valued in his collaborations. He described the emotional toll as heavy, a combination of frustration, disappointment, and sorrow. "It's one thing to face an enemy," Neil explained, "but when a friend turns against you, it leaves a wound that never fully heals." Yet even through these experiences, Diamond never allowed bitterness to take over his artistry. He continued creating music, performing, and connecting with audiences worldwide. While the betrayals left scars, they also strengthened his sense of discernment and resilience. He became more selective about whom he trusted, more careful about whom he collaborated with, and more aware of the darker sides of fame. Neil Diamond's story reminds us that the music industry isn't just about creativity and talent. It's a landscape where ambition, envy, and deception coexist with art, often in ways that fans never see. Betrayals like these test not just skill, but character and resolve. For Neil, they were painful lessons that shaped how he navigated his later career and how he eventually recognized the 6 musicians he truly hated. Even after decades, these experiences remain vivid in his memory, yet they didn't define him. Neil Diamond endured, turning heartbreak and betrayal into lessons that strengthened his artistry and helped preserve the legacy fans cherish. Today, the final 2 musicians on Neil Diamond's list of those he hated were defined not by rivalry or betrayal, but by egos so toxic that working with them became unbearable. For an artist like Neil, who has always valued harmony, collaboration, and connection, these experiences were particularly damaging. Unlike competition or betrayal, these individuals seemed motivated solely by control, seeking to dominate every stage, every recording session, and every interaction. Neil described one of these musicians as someone who treated everyone around them, band members, crew, and even fans, like disposable tools. Orders were barked rather than requested, criticism was personal rather than constructive, and any mistake, no matter how small, was met with humiliation. Neil recalled instances where these outbursts would leave crew members in tears or performers doubting their abilities. It wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a consistent, pervasive negativity that poisoned the creative environment. Music is meant to inspire, to uplift, Neil explained. But with them, it became a battle for survival. The other musician used their stage presence and influence to overshadow Neil directly. During joint performances or collaborative projects, they would manipulate arrangements, change tempos, or insert themselves into moments that were supposed to be shared. Neil, who prided himself on being a team player and elevating the music rather than the ego, found this behavior intolerable. "Some people want to share the stage," he said. "Others just want control, and I could never respect that." Even subtle manipulations left a lingering sense of frustration and diminished the joy of performing for audiences. What made these experiences particularly disheartening for Neil was their consistency. Unlike a one-time betrayal or rivalry, the arrogance and toxic behavior of these musicians were ongoing. They didn't just challenge him. They created environments that stifled creativity and drained energy. Neil explained that over time, he learned to protect himself, carefully selecting collaborators and distancing himself from individuals whose egos threatened the joy of making music. Despite the negativity, Neil Diamond never allowed these toxic personalities to define his career. He continued performing, recording, and connecting with fans, ensuring that his artistry remained intact. Yet the lessons were lasting. He learned to recognize red flags early, to navigate difficult personalities with grace, and to maintain focus on what truly mattered, the music and the audience. Highlights a side of Neil Diamond few fans see. The constant navigation of personalities in an industry where fame can inflate egos and distort priorities. While rivalries and betrayals left scars, the presence of toxic egos tested his patience and resilience in a different way. These experiences shaped the way he approached collaboration, stage performance, and professional relationships, ultimately contributing to the wisdom he now shares at 84. Even when faced with arrogance and manipulation, Neil remained dedicated to his craft. His story reminds us that in the entertainment world, talent alone isn't enough. Perseverance, judgment, and the ability to rise above toxicity are essential. The egos that sought to overshadow him became another reason he endured, continuing to create music that millions still cherish today. After decades of music, fame, and navigating the challenges of the entertainment industry, Neil Diamond reflects on the 6 musicians he hated and what those experiences taught him. These individuals, rivals, betrayers, and egotists, left marks on his career that were impossible to ignore. Yet even in admitting this, Neil's story isn't about bitterness. It's about resilience, wisdom, and the ability to rise above negativity while continuing to create music that endures. Neil admits that naming these 6 musicians wasn't easy. For years, he avoided controversy, choosing instead to focus on his art and the millions of fans who loved his music. He understood that fame could amplify every conflict, turning small disagreements into public spectacles. But at 84, he feels it's time to be honest. "I've lived long enough to see the patterns," he said. "Some people's behavior is destructive, and it's important to acknowledge it rather than hide it forever." Looking back, he recognizes that each experience taught him something valuable. The rivals showed him the importance of patience and the need to maintain focus on his craft despite external attacks. The collaborators who betrayed him reinforced the value of trust, discernment, and careful judgment when working with others. The musicians with toxic egos taught him the necessity of protecting creative space and prioritizing harmony over hierarchy. These lessons, though hard-earned, strengthened Neil's ability to navigate the music industry with grace and clarity. Despite the challenges, Neil Diamond's legacy remains untarnished. His music continues to inspire generations, proving that even in an environment rife with jealousy, betrayal, and ego, true talent and dedication prevail. Fans don't remember him for the grudges he held. They remember him for the songs that filled stadiums, the concerts that brought people together, and the timeless quality of his artistry. The 6 musicians he hated are now part of the history he reflects upon, but they do not define him. Neil's story is also a reminder of perspective. Every artist faces obstacles, negative personalities, and unexpected betrayals, yet the measure of a career isn't in the conflicts, but in how one responds. By continuing to perform, create, and connect with audiences, Neil chose to focus on what mattered most. Naming the 6 musicians he hated serves not only as honesty but as a testament to resilience, a recognition of the past, without allowing it to overshadow a lifetime of achievement. Ultimately, Neil Diamond's confession shows the complexity of a legendary career. Fame, talent, and success do not shield anyone from rivalry, betrayal, or toxic behavior. Yet the way he endured, the way he channeled experiences into his music, rather than allowing negativity to dominate, speaks volumes about his character. At 84, Neil Diamond stands as an icon not only of music, but of resilience, integrity, and the ability to rise above even the most challenging chapters of life.